Okay, well, welcome. Whether it's your morning, noon, or evening, or whatnot, we're going to go ahead and begin with our mouse chapter or module. A few things on this module. This is kind of an easy module compared to the sprites module. So I would expect if you're running late on the sprites module, this might be a little bit of a relief. Which is fine. I designed it this way because most students have issues with the sprite module. It takes a little time to kind of understand that. So if you're still having problems with it, there's some good portions in the book that will cover drawing a sprite as well. The book, the Eloquent JavaScript book, has those for you. Some sprite drawing examples. So let's go ahead and delve into for this module, get towards our, and I did have one request. Most students request the videos being as timely as possible. I do my best. So let's go ahead and move on and not get into too much discussion and get to some of the fun part as soon as possible. We're going to go ahead and start talking about the mouse events and kind of the goal or working with mouse events, entitles, three main events, and that is the mouse move, the mouse down, and the mouse up. The mouse down is when you click the mouse, one of the mouse buttons. The mouse up is when you release one of the mouse buttons. And then the mouse move event is when you move the mouse. So when you put those all in conjunction, you can actually do some awesome stuff like perform drag and drops of an image or sprite. Now we're not going to go into too much of the drag and drop other than the discussion of the PowerPoint. I have left you an example of a working drag and drop code, but I found that students, it's usually too much to start at that higher level of understanding. So if you do want to get the example of the drag and drop example, I've made it available to you. I also have a code example that does mouse, kind of like the pool games. If you've ever played the pool game where you kind of hold down on your mouse and you scale back and you release, and then the cue stick will hit something. I've got code that implements mouse, working with the mouse in that manner also, so that you can it's more vector based because you got to have a vector of force for that type of mouse movement for simulating the way a cue stick works and the way most of the pool games that you play online work. So drag and drop examples here for you. Go ahead and use it if you wish it. It's going to be part of the discussion of the PowerPoint. Before we do the PowerPoint, let's go ahead and look at our objectives for this module. Our objectives is to implement mouse down, mouse up, and mouse move events in conjunction for drawing to the canvas. We're going to create and manage a mouse state, and we're going to draw to the canvas using mouse coordinates. So what we're going to do is go ahead and start reading on chapter 15, mouse clicks, on page 249. I did see an awesome place in here on sprites somewhere around here, but it's all about, I believe it's actually even in this chapter they start talking about some sprites, working with sprites. So there's a lot of goodies in this little book that I picked out for you, including the platform game. So it's just really an excellent resource for you to work with. So go ahead and read that information, and let's go ahead and begin with our PowerPoint on what steps would be needed for drag and drop. And one of the things we would need is obviously mouse information. And what we need to do is there's certain things that we need to know about the mouse that we need to keep track of at all times. And that is because we are building a real-time game. And when a mouse event happens, we don't want to stop the game. There's no reason to stop the game. So what we do is we have this intermediary that is called the mouse state. And what the mouse state does is it's just there, and it just changes when something is done with the mouse. And so that when we're in our game loop and we want to see if there's something going on with the mouse to make a decision, we can look at this mouse state, and therefore we have something that's not specifically tied to the events, so that our game timing, our game loop can move through and continue its processing while this mouse state is keeping track of what's going on with our mouse. And that's what this whole idea of this object is. This mouse state object is just basically if you add a mouse event of any kind to your project, you want to keep track of what's going on with that mouse, because obviously you have an event and for some reason you need to keep track of. So the document object model has these mouse events that we're going to be using. We're going to be using the mouse up, the mouse down, and the mouse move, and we're going to be using those events together to do some complex tasks such as drawing to the canvas. The example of the drag and drop. So what you do is you declare the events, and then you implement the functions. And so the functions that you implement that are going to change your mouse state. So if we look here, we've got a mouse state, and we create a mouse state variable that we're going to keep track of. So one thing that we do then is when we have our functions implemented for our mouse events, we change the mouse state. So when the event happens where the function do mouse down fires, that means that our event handler detected that the user pushed the mouse down. So in the actual function that happens for that mouse down, we are going to change our mouse state. And that is so that when we are in our game loop, all we have to do is look at our mouse state and we do something with it. So essentially what makes this all work is that mouse state object. It's so that your events can be separate from your game loop. And that's pretty much one of the main things with design and understanding these, cogs within cogs and whatnot. You have to have an understanding of the mechanics. So when we implement one of the higher level functions, such as the mouse move, that's when we are looking at just saying, hey, is the mouse down? If the mouse is down and we are moving, then do something. So this is the only time where you may actually have some code that works within the or works as part of your main game loop. So whenever you're doing anything that actually manipulates the mouse state, try to do that separately with more of these utility type mouse up function, mouse down function. The mouse move is a bigger tool that will be actually doing some code in possibly. In fact, that's actually the mechanic. So the mouse down and mouse up are more just for managing the state. The mouse move is where we're probably going to actually be writing some code and doing something. We could probably add to the mouse state that the mouse is moving. So that actually probably would be better, so that we can better distance ourselves from relying on the event code to actually manipulate. Relying on the event code to actually manipulate our environment is probably not the best idea. So what we'll do is we'll try to separate that out and only allow the event code to change our mouse state. So we'll probably add something to that mouse state object as we progress. Okay, so you have the drag and drop example. Let's start playing. I have code that we're going to steal as usual, and we're going to steal from the drag and drop example. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and download this, and then we're going to do what I like to call the hack and slash, and just take everything out and use just what we want. So let's go ahead and grab that example code template that we're going to steal from. I'm going to go ahead and throw it on my desktop, and then we're going to create a whole new project as we usually do. So let's go to NetBeans, and this one you're probably going to be adding to for your homework. So you can call it, I like to usually just put the module name with my name. So let's go ahead and do this. We're going to go to File, New Project, HTML, JS application, next. Let's go ahead and call this Module 5. I think it's Module 5. Yeah, it should be Module 5. Mouse input is in Module 5. I believe it's Module 5. Okay, this might be what you're talking about by making the videos as quick as possible, right? Yeah. I'm pretty sure you are right. Okay, Module 5, mouse input. Okay. All right, Module 5. And we don't want any of these guys. All right, so here's our index. What we can do is we're just going to get rid of this. And we're going to go ahead and open up this other project. And this is the Module 5 template that has the working drag and drop. And I'm not going to talk about this code other than what we're going to steal from it. But it is a working example of drag and drop with a sprite. So you can, drag and drop. Most students have an issue with this one, because it's fairly difficult to make the mechanism work because you have to have knowledge of your previous coordinates, your previous X and Y coordinates as you're moving your object around. And that can cause some added issues with complexity. So let's just going to use this code. So let's just go ahead and grab in and look at what we got. We have our sprite sheet. We're not going to need that. We have our game.js. We're going to need that. So let's grab that. We're going to need our index, key manager, sprite, and tools. So most of those things are pretty much the same as everything I've had you use. So I'm going to go into the site root for our new project, and I'm going to paste that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go out and just start slashing things out. So let's just look from the ground up at what we got. We got our index. And we have our tools, okay? And it looks like, I'm going to zoom in on this for you here as soon as I can remember the key press for it. I believe it was an alternate. It must be just not liking me today for some reason. Oops. Control Z is your friend. Oops. All right. Control Z wasn't my friend. All right, so let's zoom in on this guy. For some reason, there it is. This is barely working for some reason. Okay, there we go. All right, well, so we have our tools.js that we usually have, and on our tools we should see some pretty standard things that we've been working with for a while, and that is our grabbing our context in our canvas, our random functions that are pretty much necessary tools for any game programming. So then we go into our keyboard manager, or our mouse manager is before the key manager. Okay, so we'll go to our mouse manager. The key manager, we'll come back to the mouse manager, but the key manager, there's nothing different. This is all the same. So everything that you've seen so far. Now the sprite we do not need. Let's get rid of that. We're not going to use a sprite for this example, so it's gone. Delete sprite, keep mouse manager, and keep key manager. Let's go ahead and look at mouse manager. It looks like mouse manager, we have our mouse state together, and we have the events set up to go. Now here, there's two parts to this. The first part is where you actually declare the events. It actually all starts here. This is the runtime code where we add the event listener. And what we're doing here is we're saying, okay, document object model, And by the way, every programming language works the same way. So any event that we're going to be having with whatever technology, we say, okay, I want to keep track of when the mouse is pushed up or down. And when the mouse has gone up, run this function, do mouse up. When the mouse goes down, any kind of button present, it doesn't matter which button, do a mouse down. And then what you can do is you can get from the arguments that come to these functions when they're fired off, you can get what button was pushed. And then we have the event mouse move, and then what will that then happen is it'll fire the mouse move event. So in the mouse move event, we'll have the ability to, do things based on whether somebody is pushing the mouse down or not. So I think what we're going to do is, for this example, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of some stuff. And this is all code for the drag and drop. We have our mouse state. What I would like to do is I would like to add to this mouse state is when we are doing a mouse move. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to use that mouse state in our game loop to make all our decisions. And what I'm going to do is just set these two booleans, the values, and then I'm also going to be setting the x and y values and the previous x and y values as we move the mouse. And what this allows us to do is to essentially work with this information separately from the events, because the events are going to be fired on a different thread than it's going to be kind of a separate portion of our application. It's kind of, it's the game loop is running all the time at 60 frames per second. An event will slow it down possibly, but it's also a separate thing. So we want to make sure that we keep that separate. I've had people actually build games and animations with mouse move. It was just ridiculous. But in any case, let's go ahead and just get rid of everything except for this right here is going to give us our x and y coordinate, and we have to subtract from the coordinates come to us for the upper left hand, or for all the coordinates of the web page. That's the problem is the web, we get the mouse coordinates for the web page, but we only want the mouse coordinates for the canvas inside of the web page. So that's why we have this little offset right here where we do a client X. So basically this rectangle, we're getting the client rectangle, or we're getting the rectangle of the canvas, and we have to subtract that. What ends up happening is when we run this, let's go ahead and give you a better example of kind of what I'm talking about. It's already running. No, it's not. Oh, come on, where are you? Oh, that's why. Okay, so the mouse coordinates we get are of this whole area, all this whole area, this white area, and all this stuff out here that's just gray area that's doing nothing for us. So this is the actual game window. So what we have to do is we have to subtract all this other stuff so that we just have the coordinates here. And that's all we really want is these coordinates. So we subtract and get just this rectangle out. We subtract this little area right here, and we subtract this little area right here. And that way our coordinates are 0, 0 in this upper left-hand corner instead of 0, 0 up here. So that's what that little bit of math is right here. So essentially our argument that we get the mouse event or the mouse information from, we put here as E for event argument. And that is going to give us the mouse position from the document object model. And we could take that mouse position, which is client X and client Y, and subtract it from those pixels that don't match our canvas, and then we come up with our true X and Y state for the canvas. So This stuff we are not going to use. But one thing that we are going to do is we're going to say my mouse state. Oh wait, you know what? We can only set, we need to set a true when we're moving and our mouse is down. So we've got to add to this mouse down false, mouse move false. We're going to probably be changing some of this. But we may have to break down and actually write some code in here that directly affects the canvas. But we're going to try it with the mouse down and the mouse move Boolean flags and see what happens. So we're updating the X and Y value. We are only setting the mouse move to true if the mouse is down and we're currently moving the mouse. That way we know that whatever mouse move is going on. So we want to actually set mouse move to false. And again, we're probably going to be changing this. All right. So for now, let's do this. Let's go ahead and comment this out because now it's hack and slash time. Let's go ahead and be as simple as we can, and we'll come back to this as we progress. The one thing we are going to do is we are going to update our X and Y coordinates when the mouse moves, regardless. And then we are also going to set mouse down to true and false when these events happen. So we always have the current location of our mouse, our X and Y value of where the mouse is on the canvas. And remember that comes from this event argument E. Now you can put an E in here, and you can put an E in here, and then what you can do is you can differentiate what mouse button was pushed on. Okay? Now, let's go ahead and we are good. We're just going to have it do some simple things, get the X and Y position. Our mouse state is going to contain the X and Y position whenever the mouse move happens. And we're going to keep track of whether it's down or up. And we have our mouse state. So that's our keyboard manager, very close to our mouse manager, very close to what we did on our key manager. We just set up a separate value that we called our keyboard state. In this idea, we're doing the same thing. We've got a mouse state that we're keeping track of, and the events, all they do is interact with that mouse state. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at, if we go back to index, we see that we've looked at key manager. Key manager's fine, that doesn't change. Mouse manager, we're getting rid of sprite.js. So let's get rid of that in our index too. And then let's go to our game.js, and we're going to get rid of a bunch of stuff. So let's pare this down as much as possible. First off, we don't need any of this right off the bat. But we do need our key state and our mouse state. We're not going to be really doing anything with keys, so we can actually get rid of that. We're just going to have the mouse state. We don't need a sprite sheet or a hero. We don't need to update our hero. We do need to redraw the canvas, but for now, let's comment that out. That way we can play with it. In our draw, we're no longer going to draw our hero or our sprite. We are going to get rid of all this. Okay. And then here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a closed path here. I believe we get a closed path. But you should have read up on this from your Eloquent JavaScript book. Actually, you know what? what happens is you need the begin path to keep track of everywhere where you draw. That way, when you restore the canvas or mess with the context, it really helps things when you keep track of your pathway of your drawing. So the begin path is needed is just a mechanism of how the drawing works. So your book will talk a little bit more about that. So we're going to actually do our drawing here. And we can probably get rid of this begin path for now, because I want to see if we can make the problem happen so you can see why you need it. Okay, so so draw was going to be simple. Let's get rid of the calc FPS. Let's get rid of the draw diagnostics. That's a big one. Well, actually, I kind of like some of it. Let's do some of this draw diagnostics, because what it does is it'll actually print. No, let's not deal with it. You've got the code; you can play with it. It just draws the location of the mouse coordinate. Okay, so this is your callback. We don't mess with that ever. It's complete. Here's our draw. We're doing nothing. We're just saving and restoring the context. Here's our update. We're doing nothing. The only thing we have is the mouse state. So this is really now a pretty pared down project. And the game loop, get rid of the calc FPS call. So now the game loop runs. We update where we do nothing. We draw where we do nothing. And then we ask for another game loop call. Okay, so pretty simple so far. This is pretty much all we have. Let me go ahead and maximize. This is game.js. After we've gotten ready to play with our mouse state. So we have our update, our draw function that does nothing, and we have our game loop. Okay, so the goal that I want to have here is we are in our mouse manager. We are keeping track of whether our mouse is down, whether our mouse is moving, the current position of X and Y, and the previous position of X and Y. The previous position of X and Y is really important, and you only want to set that afterwards. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to ignore it now, but just know that there are things where you would need the previous position of the X and Y, such as the drag and drop mechanism would need it. Because you're moving in a direction, you need to know from what direction you came from. Another one that would need the previous X and previous Y would be the example of a pool table game where you hold on the pool stick and you pull back and release. That needs a previous X and Y. So there's a lot of reasons why you need to keep track of the previous X and Y of the mouse. So we're going to keep that in there even though we're not using it yet. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and play around with some drawing now. And one thing that I would like to do is demo drawing a square to the canvas with the mouse, essentially. And what we need to do is we're going to need to keep track of where we're going to start our square, how far we move to end our square. So essentially, we want it to work kind of like our normal selection. Paint.net, let's kind of think about that. Here is us drawing a square on Paint.net. We hold it down and we go across and then we release, and that's our square. Now several problems are going to happen to us. There's going to be several problems here, and one is, well, how do we know when we are drawing all this right here when it stays and it's done with? Because we are actually, every time we do a mouse move, we're going to be drawing a new rectangle and erasing it every time here as we're moving across the screen. That's a lot of draws and erases there. There's a lot of drawing going on here and erasing. And then when we release, the last draw should be what stays. So there's a lot of things that we got to do and or keep track of, and it actually gets pretty easy with the way that we've designed this. It's been a while since I've done this, so I may have an epic fail, but let's go ahead and delve into it and give it a shot. What we want to do is we can do this in many different ways. We can complete the drawing in the mouse move event itself. So we could go over here to the mouse manager, and as long as we included tools before mouse manager, we would have our context in Canvas. So if we look at index, you see that tools is in here before mouse manager. So mouse manager has access to our canvas and our context. So we could go into mouse manager and we could do our drawing here. That's the easy way of doing things. Or we could modify our update and draw loops in our game to look at the mouse state and decide to do something based on that mouse state. Now here's the issue with that. The mouse move, we need to be looking at the mouse move event every time in 60 frames a second and making some choices on that. And only when the mouse is down and we're moving the mouse do we want to actually do something. So let's start with just drawing. Let's do this. Let's do this. I would like to start doing this instead of doing the drawing inside of the mouse manager, which we should be keeping as separate as possible. Let's do the drawing in our regular game, in our game loop. So we're going to do that inside of the draw function. Surprised? No, of course not. And what we just need to do is we just need to look at the mouse state and play with it. So I'm going to, in the essence of time here, I'm going to take a quick break and play around and work through some solutions with you when I come back. Okay, so let's go ahead. I think I've come up with an idea. I haven't changed anything, but what I've done is I've added this if statement. And this is going to be your game.js, and it's going to be if the mouse state, mouse move, Boolean is tripped. That means that if we look at our mouse manager and we look in the mouse move event, we are going to only set the mouse move event to true if the mouse is down and you're moving. So that's the only time mouse move is going to be true. So probably mouse move and down. Let's go ahead and rename that mouse move and down. Let's rename that mouse move and down. So let's set mouse move and down to true when the mouse is moving and the mouse is down. And when it's not, we're going to set mouse move and down to false. Okay, so that's going to be the change. Mouse move and down for the mouse state. We started at false. We set it to true inside the mouse move event, but only if the mouse is down and you're moving. Obviously, if you have code that's running in here and your mouse is moving. So we only set that to true when we're mouse move and down. Otherwise, if we're moving and the mouse is not down, then we set that to false. Because this thing, every time you move, literally every time you move that mouse inside the canvas, this thing's going to fire. It's going to run and it's going to do its instructions. So you have like your own little mini animation that you can, or things that you can do separately in this mouse move event. But you want to kind of do it as quickly. You don't want a lot going on. So even this if statement is just something that I would eventually try to work out in some way. But as you're beginning, it's good for now. So what we'll do is we'll go into the game, and let's play with it and see what actually happens. So we're going to say if mouse move. Okay, so in the draw function, it's going to run 60 frames a second. We're going to say if mouse move and down. Then let's do this. We may need an initial mouse down event, or an initial coordinate. And the initial coordinate is when the user initially puts their mouse down to draw that rectangle. So what we got to do is we got to go back to mousemanager.js, and we've got to have some kind of way to keep track of the initial position that came on when or the initial position of the mouse when they push the button down. So what we're going to do here then is we're going to do this. We're going to say this dot first x equals 0. This dot first y equals 0. Okay, so when we have a mouse down, we're going to do this. We're going to say this dot first x equals, and that's where we come in with this code. Go ahead and put that up here. Throw in an E up there so we can get the mouse event argument. And then what we're going to do is we're going to get the initial coordinate of the x position, and that's going to be this value. And then we're going to get the initial coordinate of the y position. This dot first y equals okay. So we get our information from E, but now we need to make sure that it works. So let's go ahead and let's go ahead and run this, and let's see if we can get our first x and first y filled with a value. And what we're going to do is let's put in a known value in here. Let's put in -999 and -999 so that we know kind of when we need to set this back, or if it's back to an initial state. So this is going to be our first x and y value. So essentially it's going to keep track of when we first push our mouse down to start drawing our square. So let's test this and see if this actually works. So we're going to go ahead and put our debugging hat on, and I'm going to run this. I'm going to run this in Chrome, and I'm going to go over here to Source, More Tools, Developer Options, and then I'm going to go in here to Sources, or the source, and specifically the mousemanager.js. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to set a breakpoint right here. Here's what we just changed. And I want to see that first x and first y is actually getting a good value. So I'm going to set a breakpoint right there. Then I'm going to come over here and just move my mouse, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to trigger that mouse down event, and it should stop my processing at this line, and I can look to see what first x and first y actually gets. So I'm going to get up, I'm going to do it right up here in the upper left hand corner so I know it's as close to 0, 0 as possible. There's my click. Okay, so we're going to be looking for a number that's close to 0, 0 for these two values. So I'm going to go ahead and do a step over. That's this guy right here. Step over. Okay, so I can do a step over now here and look at first x. First x is 4, close to 0. Good. First y, that hasn't run yet. First y is 2. Okay, so that means that our events are working. We're humming along. We're good. This code is good. So now what we want to do is when we have moused up, then we're going to set the first x equal to -999 back to its original state. Okay, so we're going to actually use that to draw our rectangle. I think we're ready to start playing. We've got our initial mouse position when we push down on the button. We have the position that the mouse moves to as it's moving along, and you're holding down the button. Now we can do a rectangle and start and see how it behaves. And then from that, we can change our behavior. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to roll around and go back to our game.js, and we're going to say, hey, if our mouse state is moving down, then we're going to say context.draw, and this is going to be our rectangle. So let's do this. Let's do a search. It's been a while since I've drawn rectangle. Context draw rectangle. Oh, it's actually draw rect. Oh no, it's rect. Okay, we could do a fill rect, but I think what we're going to do is we're going to do this one. Here we go. This should do what we want. Begin path. We want to begin path because it causes problems when we're working with normal drawing. Most of what you're going to be doing in your games is draw an image, and you won't need that stupid path nonsense. It's pretty specific to JavaScript. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. We've already got the begin path. Let's just get rid of that for now, and let's see what problems it causes. Okay, so this is going to be now our context. Now remember, stroke is to stroke or do the lines of the rectangle. We don't want the fill. We're going to do the stroke for now. So we're going to do context dot rect, and this is what we're going to do. We're going to say mouse state dot first x, and then mouse state dot first y. Okay, that's going to be the starting position. And how far we're going to go out, this is going to be from our mouse move event. So we start our rectangle where we push the mouse down. And now we are going to draw the rectangle based on the current E and X, which is going to be, this is where we initially push to start the rectangle drawing. And whenever we do a mouse move, our new location is X and Y. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's do this. Mouse state dot, did I just call it X and Y? Yep. Mouse state dot Y. So those values are what's being changed when we do a mouse move. Okay, I don't even know if this is going to work. So let's find out. Okay, so let's see what we got. Okay, so obviously we got nothing here. Oh, duh. That's my fault. I'm getting too greedy on the play button. Okay. Context.stroke. Okay, so we still got some issues here. So now what we're going to want to do is we want to set a breakpoint and see what's going on. So I'm going to go back in here and go into more tools, developer tools, go to your sources. We don't want the mouse down. We don't want the mouse move. We want to go games. And let's just look at what's going on right here. Okay, so to fire this, it should have already been fired, but only if it'll only get inside of this breakpoint is if I'm drawing and my mouse states mouse move and down is working. So if I set the breakpoint here, it's going to immediately trip. Undefined. my mouse move and down is undefined. Okay. Did I misspell it? Mouse move and down. Okay, so let's go back to the mouse manager. And mouse move and down. Okay, sometimes when I'm starting to have this problem, I just copy that. And you know, this might be a good thing for strict mode. Let's go ahead and go back to where we actually set the mouse move and down. Ah, there it is, right there. Okay, so since I'm working with the mouse state, the actual mouse state that's been defined in game.js, I'm changing it here, but I'm only defining the mouse state here. So if I'm actually going to change it, and that's where you get into the issues of the mouse manager, is because we haven't declared this object yet. What if we declare the object, the mouse state, in here after we've defined the mouse state, so that then this code has knowledge of it? So then that means that we would have to take this declaration of the mouse state from our game.js, and we would have to put it over here into mousemanager.js and just put it right there. I'm okay with it because it's part of the mouse, the whole mouse theme, and it's inside the mouse state file. Let's see if that will work so that it makes it so it's not undefined. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back to our example. What I've done is I've now moved the declaration of the mouse state inside of the mousemanager.js, but after the definition of the mouse state object. We can't create it until it's been defined. Okay, so now let's go ahead and play with this and see if we got, okay, so we still got problems. So let's go ahead and set the debugger. Okay, now we're going to set the breakpoint in the same spot here. And we're still getting undefined. Okay. So let's go ahead and make sure that the mouse move and down I've actually spelled correctly in the game.js. What I do is just copy and paste, and then let's do this, save all. Mouse state is, oh, I'm a glorious idiot. Okay, so all this debugging, I do it on purpose in my lectures because, number one, it teaches you debugging. And, well, it teaches you debugging. But obviously it's undefined because I'm using mouse state here. I need to be using my mouse. Did I really mess that up? Let's go back to that. Let's go back to game.js. And I think what I did is I used the wrong name there. Yep, I used mouse state there. Not the instantiated name, the object name. Okay, so there's a difference. This is the name of the object. I used the name of the object to create the actual object called my mouse state. I was using the object name instead of the actual object, instantiated object called my mouse state. So yeah, you got your definition name, and then you got your actual object name, and I was using the wrong one. That's what debugging is great for, and also the strict mode. Strict mode is great. I have it off for a good reason, and that's because I want to show you debugging. Okay, so let's move on now that we got that figured out. So now we can actually test this, I believe. We've got now my mouse state correctly done. Let's see what happens. Okay, we still got problems. Okay, let's set a breakpoint. Let's go back into here, developer tools, and for some reason, okay, there we go. Okay, it's false. So that's actually working now. So we've got that working. So now we can set a breakpoint in here and see if it ever goes true. Yep, it did. I set a breakpoint there. I went over here and I clicked the mouse and dragged down a little bit. So I triggered that mouse state to change. First X is undefined, so we got a problem there. First Y is undefined. Oh, because that's the same problem that I had before. I used the wrong name. Oh my God. We're back to it again. Good thing for debugging. Okay, so this is going to be my mouse state. Okay, good. 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 And good. All right, we might actually have something that works now. Okay, still got issues. We got my mouse state all the way through there. Okay, let's set a breakpoint again. See what's going on. Okay, so let's trigger this breakpoint. Okay, first X is negative 99. First Y is negative 99. So that's interesting because it should not be negative 99 if you've mouse moved and down. So I think where we're setting that state needs to be changed to something else, because obviously we're getting it resetting itself when we shouldn't. So let's look at that. It looks like the mouse up, I'm allowing that to go back to negative 99, but the mouse down should be setting it, and when I was testing that, I did not release. So we need to do several things here. We need to keep track of when we did the mouse down, when the mouse up actually happens, and I don't think I'm setting it to 99. So is this mouse down event actually happening? And I'm wondering if it's because I added this E to it. I'm pretty sure mouse down comes with an event argument allowed to it for the coordinates. It might not actually be doing that. It may be that we need to, I bet you it does not like this event argument. It's probably not even running because it's erroring out. Let's go ahead and look at mouse down and see if it has event arguments. Most languages do that. Mouse down for any mouse JavaScript event arguments. They should have an event arguments, but sometimes the mouse. Okay, so we get the mouse down event. Let's see what we got. Should be able to send in some arguments down here. Yeah, so we got the E. Okay, well, let's set a breakpoint and see if something's going on with that. What we'll do is we'll run this up here. And what I'll do is I'll go to more tools, developer tools, go to the sources. I'm particularly worried about what's going on here and what's going on here because of that negative 99 number not working right. So I'm going to go ahead and over here, I'm going to push the mouse down. Okay. So we go first X. Okay. So that's working. E is coming in correctly. There's client X and client Y. So no, that's all working. Okay. Let's go back to Mouse Manager, and let's just get rid of these for now. Oh, we can't edit here. We got to edit over here. So let's just shut this down, and let's do this first X, first Y. All right, let's run it. Set some breakpoints and see what's going on. The breakpoint that we want is going to be in game.js, and we want to see what's going on with this guy right here. Okay, so that one runs first. First X, first Y. Okay. Let's hit continue. There we go. Then it goes into here. All right, I'm going to pause. I'm going to try to figure this one out. This one's a real doozy. Okay. Okay, so I got that one figured out. So essentially, let's go back to the mouse manager. In this code, I have my object, but then I use this here like I'm inside the object when mouse down is not part of the object. So this actually has to be the instantiated name. So you only preface it with this when you're inside the object, when you're inside the object itself, inside this code. Then after that, when we use the object, we're not inside the object anymore, so we can't refer to it as this. We have to refer to it as my mouse state. And that was the problem that we were having. So let's go back and see what we have available to us now that we've made that change. Instead of this.firstX, it's my mouse state.firstX and my mouse state.firstY. Okay, then we go back to game, and we should now have what we have currently. And whoa! Ah! Cool! Look at that. Look at that. Okay, you see how the rectangles are staying there? That's because when we clear the screen with white, it doesn't know to erase them. So what we're going to do here is we're going to add this begin path. And we're probably going to see some changes in behavior. Well, it's not as bad. But in any case, it looks like we've got some issues here. The offset is horrible, number one. Look at how far off that cursor is from the end. Okay, so some things that we need to change. Well, obviously, it's just behaving totally horribly. It's not even close to what we want, but that's okay. We're having fun with it. Okay, so there's got to be some more mechanisms to get this working. What we're going to do now is we are going to make a fix for one event for the mouse manager, and it looks like this might be working incorrectly. So let's just try this. But there's going to be some other issues to make this work the way I was kind of envisioning. But what I'm thinking is this might be a better thing to add to you as a challenge to play around with. And let's get into a little bit more on where your assignment goes. What I would like you to do is draw a program or make a drawing program where you actually draw little ellipses. So this is actually for your assignment. We're going to transition over to that now and go a little bit simpler. And then I might pause it and fix this draw issue. But let me show you how to go about what I want you to do in your assignment. So what we want to do for the assignment is whenever we have a mouse down and a mouse move, I just want you to draw a little circle or a square where your mouse is currently out. And this actually gives you what you need for that. So what we're going to do is we're going to modify this a bit. And we are not going to worry about first X and Y anymore until I pause this and see if I can't figure that out. Other than that, it's going to be one of those things, but I'm going to get you to your assignment. So let's do this. Let's actually draw, as we are moving the mouse, let's just draw an ellipse or a circle. And that'll give us the kind of the illusion, or the not the illusion, but actually how paint programs actually work. So what we'll do is we'll go over here to Key Manager, or not Key Manager, but game.js, and we're going to change this. We're going to change this to work differently. And what we're going to do is we're going to say context dot, now ellipse. There is an ellipse, but you have to do an arc. You have to do an arc. So you definitely need the begin path. I believe we probably need to do a close path too. So let's go ahead and do a JavaScript close path. Okay, so we need to do that. Close path. When you're doing draw image, you don't need the begin path and close path. You only need that if you're doing native shapes. Okay, and then in between, what we're going to do is we're going to do an ellipse or the arc. So you can do Chrome has the ellipse function available to it, but only Chrome is able to render an ellipse. So the other ones you have to use the native JavaScript arc. So I would just say use arc, and the arc method you can use for drawing a circle. It's really pretty simple. All you got to do is give it the X, the Y, and then how big and radius you want it. And then this is just 2 math pi. This is how much of the arc you want. You can set it up to do half of a circle by just sending it math by certain. Well, look into. I don't want to get too much into the arc function. Because we've already used up a lot of time in this video. So we'll go ahead and read up on the arc. But we're going to actually use this right here. And we're going to do much the same thing of our example. We're going to take here and we're going to do an arc, but we're going to do a fill. We're going to do a context.arc. This is where we're going to take and we're going to use myMouseState.x and myMouseState.y. Then we're going to say, okay, well, how big do we want it? Well, let's just make it small, 5 pixels, 5 by 5. And then we want a full circle, so we're going to put in 2 times math.pi. Then we're going to do a context, but we're not going to do a context stroke. We're going to do a context fill because we want to fill the circle. And whatever color we've set the context up will be what the color we have, we're drawing. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. Well, that's kind of interesting. Kind of cool. That looks like kind of a half arc, doesn't it? I think I'm doing the arc wrong. Let's do some more search. A full circle. Let's look at some examples here and modify this arc code a bit. It looks like this is not the code to do a full circle. So let's find something. Let's find an example where we do a full circle. Okay, let's look at that. Okay, so we got to look at the arguments. To create a start angle to 0 and end angle to 2. Oh, that's what I did wrong. it's size and then starting point. So this needs to be size and this needs to be 0. That's the start of the angle of your arc. And then you go until the radians value of how big your arc you want. So this actually needs to be 0. Okay, so let's go back to our code. Now let's make a bigger circle. Let's make it 10 wide, starting at 0 degrees. Cool. Got it. Okay, so you can play around with that. Okay, so here's some things that happen though. If we were to do this, here's what happens is that this isn't something we can actually do a game on. Because as soon as we go here to clear the rectangle, isn't that cool? It just draws it and immediately erases it. So it's kind of interesting how that kind of works out. So let's go ahead and go back to this. Okay, so let's do this. Let's get rid of the path and see what happens. Look at that. Isn't that weird? Okay. Okay, let's bring back the path. Okay. Now, let's erase it and get rid of the path. Okay, so look into a little bit more on the begin path, close path. I just do it. It's just part of the mechanics of most 2D drawing mechanisms. What you want for this particular assignment is you don't want to redraw the screen to do your paint. Now, if you were doing that rectangle select example that we first started out with and we failed on, then you would probably have to do some kind of clear rectangle on that. But in any case, to implement mouse actions, you need the events and you need some way of keeping track of what's going on. So here's what I want you to do is once you've watched this video and completed this example, I am going to allow you to submit that as your assignment that we did together through the video. But I'm going to add an extra credit portion to this. And that is if you are able to complete, because I don't want to take up much more of your time on doing something that or learning or working on something that would be a good challenge for you guys to complete. So what we're going to do here is let's go ahead and modify this assignment a bit. And this is one that I purposely put in here and set up as to give you a little bit more time to get that sprite work done. It's intended to be a little bit of a breather module. So what I want you to do is number one, what we just got done. Click on the starting point and hold down the mouse and move in the direction you want the circle drawn towards. The more you move, the bigger the circle. No. The circle on the most complete the drawing. Okay. This is going to all change. Okay. And okay, so this is going to be create an application that draws circles on the screen based on your mouse moving with the button held down. Demo in video. Okay, so that would be your assignment. I want you to turn in that you've completed that and show me proof that you work with basically everything on how do you submit your assignments. Then what I want you to do is I want you as a bonus extra credit to this module just right on top is cream, extra credit, fix the rectangle drawing okay, that's it. And that is what I want you to do. So that's going to be 10 extra credit points for you. And it would be a boost to your grade. Okay, plus 10 points. I can't remember how many points I made this, but it's 10 would be a good one. Okay, so that's mouse management and a little challenge for you to complete. And of course, an example, etc. All right, guys, on to the next module. Take care. Thank you.